When she stood trembling in his office years ago, whispering the words, "I'm pregnant," the Millionaire CEO's heart turned to stone. He wasn't ready. He convinced himself that love and family were distractions he could not afford. So, he denied her, denied the child, and buried the guilt beneath piles of contracts and glass towers. But fate does not forget. Years later, in a small, sunlit park, his carefully built world shattered. A little girl laughed, chasing butterflies, her features so achingly familiar that his chest tightened. His eyes looked straight at him with innocence and unspoken questions. And beside her stood the woman he had pushed away, stronger but still carrying the weight of his rejection. In that moment, he realized he hadn't just lost her. He had lost years with his daughter. Now, he had one chance to prove he was no longer the man who once walked away. The rain lashed against the glass walls of Blackstone Enterprises, streaks of water distorting the glittering city skyline beyond. Inside the penthouse office, Adrian Blackstone, New York's most ruthless millionaire CEO, stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. Power was his religion, ambition, his only love. Behind him, Emma sat nervously in the leather chair, clutching the strap of her worn handbag. Her heartbeat thundered as she whispered the words that would change everything. "Adrian, I'm pregnant." For a brief second, silence swallowed the room. Adrian turned, his sharp jaw tightening, his steel-gray eyes narrowing as though he hadn't heard correctly. "What did you just say?" Her voice trembled. "You're going to be a father." The air grew heavy. The hum of the city below seemed distant as Adrian's expression hardened into something cold and unreadable. He walked slowly to his desk, pressed his palms against the polished wood, and exhaled sharply. "Emma," he said, his voice low but cutting, "you know I can't do this." Tears stung her eyes. "Can't? Or won't?" His lips curved into a bitter smile. "I built this empire from nothing. Every second of my life is accounted for. A wife, a child, those are distractions I cannot afford. I told you from the beginning. I don't do family. I don't do love." Her chest tightened. She had hoped, foolishly, that beneath his ruthless exterior was a man capable of more. A man who could love not just her, but the little life they had created. "You don't mean that," she whispered. But he did. His silence screamed louder than words. Emma stood, her legs unsteady. "Then this is goodbye, Adrian." He didn't stop her, didn't call her name, didn't move as she turned and walked out of the glass palace he had built around himself. The door shut with a soft click that sounded more final than a slammed one. For weeks, Adrian buried himself deeper in work, board meetings, international flights, late nights with contracts spread across his desk. Yet, no matter how many zeros he added to his fortune, her last words haunted him. In his rare quiet moments, he caught himself wondering what would it have been like to hold a child, his child, to see Emma's smile every morning, not as a fleeting memory but as a lifetime. He crushed the thought each time, convincing himself it was weakness. Meanwhile, Emma's world shifted in silence. Alone in a small apartment on the city's edge, she traced the curve of her belly with trembling fingers. She whispered promises to the life inside her. "I'll love you enough for both of us. I'll protect you, always." The months were not easy. She worked double shifts, endured lonely nights, and faced the cruel judgment of a society that whispered about the woman the millionaire CEO had discarded. But with every kick she felt, every heartbeat she heard, her resolve grew stronger. When the day finally came, she held her daughter tiny, perfect, and with Adrian's unmistakable eyes against her chest. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she whispered, "You'll never need him. You have me." Adrian, meanwhile, rose higher. His name graced magazine covers. The untouchable CEO, they called him, a man too powerful to be broken, too cold to be swayed. And yet, every now and then, he found himself staring into the night sky from his penthouse balcony, wondering about the child he had chosen not to know. He never admitted it aloud, but deep down, in the silence of his heart, Adrian Blackstone knew he had made the gravest mistake of his life. The years slipped by, silent thieves of time. Adrian Blackstone's empire only grew, his name etched deeper into the foundations of power. Yet, for all his wealth, a shadow lingered in his life. Success filled his days, but nights were different, haunted by a single memory. "Adrian, I'm pregnant." He had buried those words beneath layers of ambition, but they never truly left him. It was a crisp spring afternoon when fate intervened. Adrian, dressed in his signature tailored suit, had cut his morning short to meet a potential investor at a quiet park cafe. He never came to places like this, too public, too messy, but something about today had pushed him to change his routine as he waited. Sipping his coffee with impatient taps of his pen, a sound reached him, a child's laughter. Light, free, and hauntingly familiar. Adrian's pen stilled. His eyes turned, and the world around him blurred. There, a few yards away, a little girl chased butterflies near the flower beds. She looked no older than 6. Her hair, chestnut brown, curled around her face, and when she turned, the sunlight caught her eyes, those unmistakable gray eyes that mirrored his own. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. Before he could process, a soft voice called out, "Leela, stay close." Emma. She stood on the edge of the path, watching the girl with a protective yet tired smile. She hadn't changed much, her hair a little longer, her posture stronger, but the same gentle warmth clung to her. Only now, there was a quiet strength in her eyes, forged from years of hardship. Adrian froze. The air seemed to vanish, leaving only the sound of his own pounding heartbeat. Her and the child. My child. The past comes crashing back. He didn't realize he had stood up until Emma's gaze locked with his. For a heartbeat, her face went pale, lips parting in shock. Then, like a curtain dropping, her expression hardened. "Emma," Adrian whispered. Stepping toward her, she stiffened, instinctively pulling the little girl closer, as Lila ran back, clutching her hand. The girl looked up curiously, her wide gray eyes blinking at the tall man, who stared at her as though he'd seen a ghost. Emma's voice was calm, but sharp. "What are you doing here?" "Adrian, I didn't know," he said hoarsely. He glanced at the child, unable to finish. Emma's jaw tightened. "You don't get to say her name." The words hit him harder than any business loss ever had. His mouth opened, but nothing came. For the first time in years, Adrian Blackstone, the man who commanded boardrooms with a single word, stood speechless. The child's innocence. Leela tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, who is he?" Emma knelt, brushing a hand over her daughter's curls. "Just someone Mama used to know, sweetheart." But Adrian couldn't stop himself. He crouched down, his voice breaking despite himself. "Hello, Lila." The little girl tilted her head. "Do you know my name?" His throat tightened. He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, I think I always have." Emma's sharp inhale cut through the moment. She stood quickly, taking her daughter's hand. "We should go." But Lila looked between them, confusion clouding her young face. "Mama, why are you upset?" "He looks like me," Emma faltered. Adrian's heart shattered. The resemblance, the connection, it was undeniable, even to the child. The mother's walls. Later that evening, Adrian couldn't focus. The image of Emma and Lila walking away burned into his mind. He had faced countless negotiations, won against cutthroat rivals, and secured billion-dollar deals, but this was the one battle he didn't know how to fight. The next day he went back. And the day after, until finally Emma confronted him outside the small apartment she now called home. "Stop following us." "Adrian," she snapped. "I just want to talk. You lost that right years ago." Her voice cracked, but her eyes remained steady. "You can't walk back into our lives now and expect everything to change." "I know," Adrian admitted, surprising even himself. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but Emma, she's my daughter." I saw her eyes. "You can't deny it." Her silence was answer enough. "I won't take her from you," he continued, softer. "But let me prove I can be more than the man I was." Emma shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "You think it's that simple? You weren't there when she cried at night. You weren't there for her first steps, her first words. You don't get to swoop in now and call yourself her father." Adrian flinched, every word piercing him deeper than any business defeat. But he didn't argue. For once, he knew silence spoke louder than his excuses. A fragile beginning. Days turned into weeks. Adrian began showing up in small, quiet ways, leaving groceries at Emma's door, donating anonymously to the school Leela attended, offering help without expectation. At first, Emma refused to acknowledge him, but slowly, she began to notice the difference, not the CEO, who once denied them, but a man trying, fumbling, desperate to be part of their lives. One afternoon, at the park again, Lila ran up to Adrian, clutching a drawing. "I made this," she announced proudly. Adrian knelt, taking the paper with trembling hands. It was a stick figure family. A girl, a mother, and hesitantly drawn a man with gray eyes. "That's you," Leela giggled. "Mama says you're just a friend, but I think you're special." Emma stood at a distance, her arms crossed, but her heart ached at the sight. For the first time in years, she saw not the cold CEO, but a man stripped of pride, quietly longing for a family he had once thrown away. The turning point, the breaking point came one stormy evening. Emma's car broke down on her way home from work, and Lila, frightened by the thunder, clung to her. Adrian, who had been nearby, appeared with an umbrella, shielding them both from the rain. For a long moment, Emma stared at him, soaked, unbothered by his expensive suit being ruined, his only focus on keeping her and Lila safe. Something shifted. Her walls, built over years of pain and betrayal, cracked just slightly. And in that crack, Adrian silently vowed, "I won't let them go again. Not this time." The stormy night lingered in Emma's memory for days. She hadn't expected Adrian to be there. Hadn't expected the man who once chose power over her to now stand in the pouring rain, shielding her and their daughter as if nothing else in the world mattered. But walls built on years of betrayal don't crumble overnight. Adrian didn't push. Instead, he showed up in quiet, consistent ways. He offered to walk Lila home from school when Emma worked late. He sat through Lila's endless chatter about drawings, fairy tales, and school plays. He even learned how to braid hair badly, but with a determination that made Lila laugh until her cheeks flushed pink. For Adrian, every moment was a revelation. The ruthless CEO who once measured life in numbers and contracts now measured it in laughter, bedtime stories, and sticky little hands grabbing his tie. Emma watched, hesitant. A part of her wanted to believe he had changed. Another part reminded her of the cold man who once turned his back on them. A painful confession one evening. After putting Lila to bed, Adrian lingered on the porch where Emma stood. The night was still, the city lights flickering in the distance. "I know what you're thinking," Adrian said softly. "That I'll walk away again. That this is temporary." Emma crossed her arms. "You've given me every reason to think that." He nodded, accepting the blow. "I can't erase what I did. I can't give you back the nights you cried alone, the years you raised her without me. But Emma, every day I see her, I regret not being there more. I regret losing you." Her breath caught, but she remained silent. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued, his voice trembling in a way she had never heard before. "But I'm asking for a chance. Not for me but for her. She deserves to know she has a father who loves her." Emma's eyes glistened, but she turned away, afraid her tears would betray her. The child's voice. It wasn't Emma who made the final crack in the wall. It was Lila. One night, while Emma tucked her in, Lila whispered, "Mama, why don't you like Mr. Adrian?" Emma froze. "It's complicated, sweetheart. But he's nice," Lila said softly. "When he reads me stories, he makes the funny voices. And when I fall, he always helps me up. He makes me feel safe, like a daddy should." Emma's throat tightened. She kissed her daughter's forehead, whispering, "Sleep, my love." But as Lila drifted off, Emma's own heart wrestled with a truth she could no longer deny. Redemption earned. Weeks later came Lila's school play. She had begged both Emma and Adrian to attend. Adrian, despite an urgent board meeting with international investors, chose the play. His assistant panicked. The board threatened delays, but Adrian simply said, "Cancel it. Nothing is more important today." Emma sat in the audience, stunned as Adrian arrived early, clutching a bouquet of roses awkwardly in his hands. When Lila spotted them both in the crowd, her eyes lit up. On stage, dressed as a tiny fairy, she waved so hard she almost toppled over. The entire auditorium laughed, but Adrian's chest swelled with pride. After the performance, Lila ran into his arms. "Did you see me, Daddy?" The word hit him like a tidal wave. Daddy, not Mr. Adrian. Not Mama's friend. Daddy. His eyes burned as he hugged her tight. "You were perfect, sweetheart. Perfect." Emma watched, her defenses crumbling completely. The final choice that night. Adrian walked Emma home, Lila skipping ahead of them, her laughter ringing in the cool air. "Emma," Adrian said, his voice steady, "I don't want to just be in her life. I want to be in yours too. I want to make up for every lost moment. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I promise I'll never walk away again." She searched his face, trying to find the cold CEO she had once known, but he was gone. In his place stood a man stripped of arrogance. Humbled by love, tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "Don't break her heart, Adrian. Don't break mine again." He reached for her hand, tentative but hopeful. "I won't. Not this time." Lila's giggle interrupted them as she turned back, holding their joined hands together. "See, Mama, we're a family now." Belonging weeks turned into months, and slowly, Emma allowed Adrian into their daily lives. Dinner together became routine. Lila's laughter filled not just Emma's small apartment but Adrian's once lonely penthouse. The cold, glass-walled empire he had built finally felt warm, alive with love. Adrian realized something profound. All the wealth, power, and success he had ever chased were meaningless compared to the simple joy of being called Daddy. And Emma, though cautious, saw the truth in his every action. He was no longer the man who had denied her. He was the man who had chosen them wholeheartedly, without hesitation. In the end, it wasn't fate that reunited them, it was love, patience, and the unshakable bond of family. If this heart-touching story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every story here is crafted to bring you emotional journeys of love, heartbreak, and redemption. What would you do if the person who once walked away came back, years later, asking for a second chance? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your engagement keeps us going. Every like and comment motivates us to create more unforgettable Millionaire CEO love stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of love, pain, and destiny. Stay connected with us and join a growing family of viewers who believe that true love always finds its way back.